The average time between the company getting hacked and the awareness of the hack globally is 209 days.
Thank you for coming today.
Great to be here. Thanks for asking.
Good.
I was kind of surprised. Like, what could you possibly want to speak about with me?
A lot.
Okay.
So where were you on the night
Of
March 10th?
You mean before the quake?
Yes.
I was at home.
Okay.
I swear.
Okay. Now, we do have videotape of you
Yeah.
coming out of the Quickie Mart.
Yes, of course. Yeah, the Quickie Mart's a good place to get all, everything you need in preparation for the earthquake.
That's right. Okay. So, good. So, Scott, you're now a partner at Squire Patton Boggs, but you've had an illustrious career.
Some say strange. I think it's not a normal career, but it's been good.
Take me through it to kind of give your bona fides and like who you are and why people should be listening to you.
Well, I jumped ship in Hong Kong and I got on as a Looper. Now, it's an old movie that nobody's going to even remember, Caddyshack. So I was always interested in several different things, but in the law, I was really interested in entertainment law and technology and IP. And I had gone to law school in LA because it was close to the music scene. I wanted to kind of get involved in that. And I'd clerked through law school as a litigator and then started practicing as a litigator. And, after about 7 years of that, I met my wife. She's half Japanese. We came to Japan several times. She grew up a lot of her life here. And so we came to Japan a lot. And every time I came to Japan, I was like, wow, it's a great place to be. So I moved here, worked with Sega as general counsel, or eventually became general counsel. I was there about 6 years. And that was a fascinating job because it was in-house, but it covered all sorts of different areas of the IP law. It had everything from trademarks and copyrights and trade secrets and patents and, all sorts of design patents, just all sorts of different parts of the IP space. So I was there about 7 years, and then I moved over to do the Xbox launch for Japan, and then the rest of Asia from the legal side.
At Microsoft.
At Microsoft, right.
Okay.
And then after that, I went and worked with Kroll, an investigations group, and did not only IP protection work, but a lot of the computer forensics, eDiscovery type things. Was coming online with a lot of the eDiscovery vendors and stuff.
That's where we met in 2014.
That's right.
Yeah, and we went to have yakitori under the tracks in Yurakucho.
The great place which closed, and I lost. But now I found it. I'll give you the deets
afterward.
As the kids like to say.
When I have colleagues or friends come over from overseas, I take them to the Shimbashi area.
Right.
One of my guests, who wrote a book called The Lucky Laundry.
Oh.
It's about money laundering in Australia.
Okay.
And
good name.
Yeah. And we went to what he called the armpit.
Oh.
And it's around Shimbashi Station. There are those arches.
Yeah.
And you walk under, and there's like yakitori and all kinds of good places. And you've probably been there before, but the place from Yurakucho, they had the best sauce.
Really?
Yeah. And it was a family recipe, if I remember.
Yeah.
And the son had taken over when his father passed away. Some people said, oh, it's not the same. Well, of course it's not.
Yeah.
But then they started building up that area. And I think they put in like some fake izakaya.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
the old izakaya like you see by Yurakucho Station. There's a little alley that goes under the tracks where there's all these really super old pubs. So they're not pubs; they're izakaya.
Yeah,
the Japanese word for pub. Yeah. But as you walk towards Shimbashi, there were all these old little drinking establishments. You would sit on beer crates.
Right.
I remember. And the table was like a particle board.
Beautiful.
And those places have the best food. They have these old guys who've been doing this for 30, 40 years. And they've refined their process to such a point that everything comes out of the kitchen is amazing.
Right. And now they try to recreate that. Like in Shibuya, they have that area where it's kind of all different types of Japanese cuisine, but it's, from that old style, but it's all new and it's not nearly as good.
It's not the same. And it's usually sponsored by a brewer.
I see.
a Japanese beer company or something,
right.
and I hesitate to name names because someday they might want to sponsor me. So.
That's right, or maybe not because you used the wrong name.
That's right. Yeah, but usually it's sponsored by a brewery, a beer company, and then you'll see their signs along there, and then they'll have like yakitori, they'll have yakiniku,
right,
and
great
okonomiyaki.
Yeah,
but it's kind of corporate now,
right?
So, which is kind of too bad. There was another ruckus over the Azabudai Hills development where Mori bought up city blocks.
Okay.
And all the old buildings were taken down, like the little, like 2-3 story apartment buildings, the old drinking establishments, they're all taken down. And on Gaijin Twitter, now X, there was a big to-do about that, a big brouhaha. It's like, oh, they're taking down all these old places. And I asked a Japanese friend who deals in property,
right,
who's a lawyer, a Japanese lawyer. And she said, well, those old places are kind of a fire hazard.
I see.
So it's just progress. And then you get somebody who's 80 years old who's been doing this for 50 years.
Right. And that's all they do. Right.
And they're like, well, Mori wants to pay me millions of dollars for this little postage stamp size of property, and I can retire.
Right.
And so they take the deal and go. So I think that's how a lot of...
Sponsored by beer companies. Mm-hmm. If it's a funny thing, is it really a brew? Ha ha. Hey, jokes come for free.
That's right.
If you don't like them, you didn't pay anything.
Hey, you get what you pay for it, right? That's one thing I like about you is your sense of humor.
Well, you're one of the few, but and this week's check is in the mail.
Does your wife appreciate your sense of humor?
She does, but she doesn't listen to it all, which is selective hearing is a very important thing. It's 32 years of marriage, so selective hearing is very important.
It's critical
for her.
Okay.
For me, I need to be on.
Yeah, you have to. You have to be on all the time.
I'm supposed to select on.
Yep. I love those situations where she'll be going away for the weekend and say like, "Oh, I told you 4 weeks ago." It's like, I was searching for my keys when you told me, and I couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, right.
So, but that's so. Sega and then the Sony Xbox launched in Japan.
To Microsoft Xbox, and they did that, and then went to Kroll and ran Kroll for the region for computer forensics eDiscovery.
Okay.
Then I moved over to another eDiscovery company with the Japan office called Epiq, and then I went back to private practice just about 7 years ago with Squire Patton Boggs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And they are a global firm that has how many thousand?
We have about 1,500 attorneys. Maybe it's a little 1,600 now. It's. I think the issue with Squire is that it's changed its name so many times. I mean, people used to know Graham and James way back in the region. It was big, and then it was Squire Sanders forever.
Yep.
And then in like 2012, Squire Sanders and Patton Boggs merged, so Squire Patton. So we constantly are changing names, and people don't know. But it's in the top 10 of most global firms.
So why do law firms change names? Like J.C. Penney Company didn't change their name.
Yeah, but they didn't merge with Sears.
That's true.
Right? If you
could have been J.C. Sears.
Yeah, people get pretty proprietary about their names and the firms, and they want to integrate. So you try to find something that works.
And the founding partner, wants their name on the stationery too. Right?
That helps, I think.
That was a line in Pretty Woman. Where Richard Gere goes to take over a shipping company.
Okay.
And he says, like, I don't think the old guy wants his name taken off the stationery just yet. So
I see. Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. So at Squire Patton Boggs now, you're in charge of cybersecurity investigations, litigation, all kinds of exciting stuff.
Yeah, when I went back to private practice, the thing that was exciting me, that was kind of new coming into law, was technology and the law and how they collide. I think that's probably been the one constant through my career. Is it's always been a lot about law and technology and the collision and tension between the two. And the area of data privacy and cybersecurity was one that seemed like it was going to be heating up 6-7 years ago. So I focused on that.
6-7 years ago, GDPR was all. You open up LinkedIn and everybody's talking about GDPR.
Yeah, that was coming online, right?
What's GDPR? GDPR
is European data privacy rules. Let's just make it that simple. And that passed in 15, and then implemented in 2018.
Okay.
And that basically codified a whole bunch of European data privacy laws. Each country had their own, but it codified them into a supposedly one flavor.
coherent.
The interesting thing is that French GDPR is a little different from German and UK.
Okay.
And that's kind of the complicated nature, but it's not nearly as chaotic as like the United States that has 50 different states.
Yeah.
Laws.
California has their own.
California, Colorado, a lot of different states have their own. Federal court or the federal, the Congress is discussing whether they can pass some type of federal privacy law. But I don't think it's going to be this session.
The U.S. always has this tension between states' rights and federal.
Yep.
And it comes, becomes a part of everyday life for so many people. But you were going to talk about computers and technology, and
I just thought, as long as we're talking about data and some of the interesting issues around that, I hope this doesn't bore people. I want to kind of go back to what I think of, where a lot of this started, where computing data, and then how it leads to some of the issues we have today.
Okay.
Right. So, I mean, certainly the computers and things like that. A lot of that was World War II timing, where they were coming up with different things to try to break codes. And lots of history there about how they had to use transition tubes and, then punch tape and stuff like that, right? Or even then it was cards, right?
Yeah, and then that was a time where it would take you like a year to play a bingo game.
Right. So, I mean, I started kind of playing with computers in junior high with, this old teletype machine that was hooked to our high school, and we could play Star Trek. But it was reams of paper because they didn't have screens then. So they'd print out where the Klingon ships were. Anyway, so I became a little bit interested in it at that time and did a little bit of easy programming. And then when I went to law school, graduated from college, I thought that maybe there's going to be a future in these things called desktop computers.
Bill Gates had a vision, put one in every home, right?
Yeah, and Steve Jobs also. Apple at the time was doing that. And then, some people were using things like the old Atari Vision, or not Atari Vision, but Atari. And Nintendo even had an idea to do stock trading on a Nintendo Master System, 8-bit system.
The precursor of GameStop.
It was the idea.
GameStonk.
Yeah. So, I just thought that maybe there's going to be some future in this. So I talked my dad into loaning me $5,000 to buy what was supposed to be a portable, about half the size of this table, computer with a green, monochrome screen and 2 floppy disk drives. There wasn't any hard drive then. And I did all my law school briefs on it and stuff like that because I thought I really should kind of become used to it. And the funny thing is, even then, so this will date me. So even back in 1980, 5 time frame, Microsoft had a program on a floppy drive which was called AI software.
Wow!
And it was designed to be able to see things that were happening in your file system and other things to help you keep track of stuff and be able to make associations. And I thought, I got it. I don't think I ever used it because I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
We have this idea that AI is just new.
Yeah.
Because generative AI has gotten so impressive with its capabilities that we now go, oh, this is brand new. But, you could argue that almost all these old programs, even the thing that knows that when you push the button on your rice cooker, that you want it cooked in this particular way, right?
Well, there is an argument that the Swiss came up with AI decades ago.
Really?
Through watchmakers. And they were trying to predict. I can't remember exactly what they're doing, so I shouldn't have even brought it up. But they were using the mechanical gears on watches and computers that they had handmade to predict outcomes.
Yeah.
So
and that's kind of that idea of computing is even when it was back, cathode ray tubes, it was on and off, zeros and ones essentially, and if it flashed, it went one way, and it just became much more condensed with transistors being able to do that, and now it's down to very small. But you can do the same kind of concept with watchmaking because you can track things through how the gearing works. So even back then, there was kind of this AI concept.
Okay.
I remember going to my law firm that I was clerking at and suggesting that, at that time we were using a dictaphone to dictate what we wanted, and then we gave it to the secretaries and they'd type it up and we'd get it back and then we'd correct it and they'd type it up again. And so and some of this was, using the same set of questions generally and then adding a couple in the litigation phase. And so I went to the partners and said, I have this concept that maybe I should bring my computer and I can put it on my desk and could speed this up. And they said, Scott, lawyers are never going to use computers and have them on their desk. Are you crazy? We don't do that. And so, over time, things have changed so much, right? So, fast forward to, 15, 20 years ago, we started, realizing that cloud type services and the ability to move data that companies were using, and about their customers and about their business and operation and performance, moving it up to some type of system where that data could be crunched and then used to make things more efficient. Became a great business efficiency thing, and it kind of globalized in so many ways. So much of what we do. And companies that became global could find out when the products are going to be made here and then moved over here and just become really efficient. So that was the big benefit.
It's kind of supply chain management, right?
That, and also just knowing your customers. They're buying purple ties in Cincinnati, right? Let's make some more purple ties. And by the way, they have probably enough. Let's go green, right?
Well, in Amazon, when you go into Amazon, which I'm an addict, Amazon Prime, they will remember your last searches and say, are you still looking for a camera?
Right.
Or now that you got the camera, are you looking for memory cards? Are you looking for a tripod? It'll string things together in a very smart way that
it helps in so many ways, right? But unless you buy a gift for your wife and you don't want her to see it.
That's true.
And then you have to kind of...
and then she opens up the browser. Are you still looking for perfume?
Yeah.
Honey, we need to talk.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's a great example of some of the things that technology helps us with. There's so much information out there on the internet. I use "the" before internet. There's so much information that it's hard to parse through it.
Yeah.
So the ability to know what your preferences are in many ways is a great thing. And in some ways it gets creepy. Yeah. Right? The old stories about, some father finding out his daughter was pregnant because all of these, the searches for pregnancy testing stuff or
symptoms of pregnancy or late or something. Yeah, yeah.
So all of that then becomes the creepy side. And part of the early history on data privacy with GDPR, as you mentioned, in the US, is we were kind of having two different flavors generally of privacy. We had different, what I call creepy levels. When does it get creepy? In Europe, it gets creepy really quickly. And a lot of people attribute that to, what happened during World War II with persecution, French and Germans. So GDPR is very strict in its idea of what data you should be able to collect and where it gets creepy. The United States has, I think, a less higher degree of creepiness.
Okay.
But so there was an app, this was probably 7 years ago, it was a sports app that Sacramento Kings, was it? Could have been Sacramento Kings. And some other sports teams used. Okay. And I'm not getting that name right though. Anyway, it was one of the basketball teams. Okay. And they used it so that when you were in the arena, you could see, you're in row 45B. You walk up the stairs, turn left, you can get, XYZ jerseys. Turn right, you can get your nachos and beer. Okay. Right? Very cool app. It had to keep you up to date with latest history on the team. But it also had kind of one of those listening things, like an Alexa type part of it that was on. People would go home and say, what do you think, honey? You want some pizza? And then pretty soon you start getting Domino's pizza ads on it. And that's the creepy line in the US, right? Yeah. I want to know where to buy my jerseys. I don't mind knowing nachos and beer. That makes sense. But when it starts tracking, and that crosses the line. So I used to kind of think of data privacy as two sides of a coin. We had two flavors. It was digital. We had American and we had European, right? European and now UK because we have. So, but now I actually think it's a continuum.
Okay.
And let's start with Europe. Europe, the idea is that data privacy is a fundamental human right. And we talked about why that might be, but it's a fundamental human right, and the laws are built around ensuring that that's protected. Whether or not all the Europeans are reading through those long, legalese that says you agree to, that's another question. I think that's probably no, but still the law is really based around that.
Okay.
U.S., I think, considers data privacy as a fundamental corporate right. That means the corporations gather it and use it, but God forbid you lose it, you miscollect it, don't tell people what you're using it for, because then the class action suits, the derivative suits, the fines, the need to report.
And you got to go sit in front of Congress and answer uncomfortable questions
that the congressional leaders don't even know what they're asking, right?
Those are hilarious, by the way. Those are hilarious, by the way.
They are.
They don't know the difference between cookies and a plate of cookies.
Well, and it's not that not understandable. That's not the right word. There's too many knots in there. It's completely understandable. Let's go that way.
Okay.
Because this technology has moved so fast.
Yep.
I mean, right? At any rate, so the cost of making a mistake in the U.S. is huge. And it's larger than you'd pay under European rules, but most people think Europeans the strictest in some ways. So, but U.S. I think see it as a fundamental corporate right. Let's dial now with China, who's implemented data privacy in 2000 and so 2017 was the Cybersecurity law, and it had some personal privacy issues related to it. And then, just recently they implemented the Personal Information Protection Law. And that provides very similar GDPR-like rights in data, but is really much more focused on what I say data is a fundamental state right.
Okay.
Fundamental human right, Europe, fundamental corporate right, US, fundamental state right in China.
Okay, so the state has the right to collect your data and know about you.
Yes, and it's designed really to protect. I think that it gives certain, again, individual rights, and it's a funny balance because in China, necessarily the individual rights isn't the focus.
Okay.
But it is very much, I think, as a country, very focused on it being a state right.
Okay.
That's not to say that Europe doesn't care about state. It's state security with data privacy. We saw that with its objections to the United States, data moving there, and that the U.S. government has the right national security interests when that's a concern to be able to access data without an independent judicial review, right? So they certainly have that. U.S. is all about Huawei and now TikTok and the ability for China to be able to see this information and how that might affect state security, right? And China is not just about state. It does protect and provide individuals a lot of rights, oftentimes from other countries gathering and taking or getting that data.
So we don't want the information of our citizens being gathered, like track, trace, and database by a foreign government, right? And especially if you put it in the context of, and tell me if I'm wrong, you go to China much more than I do. You know China much better than I do. But it's if this is correct, every corporation is 50% state-owned.
It's not true.
Okay.
It used to be, and I think it's still maybe, I'm going to show some ignorance there, that if you're going to be a foreign corporation, you need to have a local partner. Yeah. The state-owned entity, the purely state-owned entities from the past have started to dissolve a bit in China, but there still are several.
Okay. And I'm showing my ignorance too.
Well, I should know better. I'm starting to spend half my time there, but I'm focused on the data side of it.
Is if an enterprise is 50% state-owned and maybe has, when I was in the automotive industry, we had all these export controls on things like GPS, right? Because that can be used for military applications. I mean, it was a military application, got rid into cars and phones, but you can use a phone for military application if you decide to. But if an enterprise is state-owned and it has something that could be of national interest, state interest, and a foreign body, corporate or government, is collecting that data, that person is a state, could be considered, I can make an argument, they're a state actor. So
Yeah.
foreign government's collecting information on a member of the party, for example. And I could see from their point of view, that's not okay. That would just be like any other foreign country watching American government officials, whether it goes to police or immigration or congressional members or their staff. So I can see the point.
And so you see this now with kind of the latest U.S. executive orders that came down earlier this month, that were saying we're concerned about, they've listed it as countries of concern, which in the past, everybody probably would have said, oh, of course it's, North Korea and Cuba, and now Venezuela's been added to the list, Iran.
Yeah.
Russia was added after the Ukraine invasion, and then you've got China now added.
Well, I think we had an issue with Russia when Reagan was around too, but
yeah, the interesting thing is that I don't know if we listed them as former countries of concern, and maybe we did. China, I think, is a somewhat new entrant to that list.
Yeah.
And
then it's also in the cyber realm. Right?
Yes.
So during the Cold War, it was more like, where are the missiles? Now it's more like, where are the computers?
Yes, because all data is now on a computer somewhere, and if you can get in, I think that's the other thing is a lot of people think that a cyber breach, people know about it immediately, but the studies, IBM Ponemon has a great study it's been doing for 10 or more years. And it's been consistent. The average time between the company getting hacked and the awareness of the hack globally is 209 days. It's gone from 207 and 6 and around, but it's 209 days.
Almost 7 months.
Yes.
So that's almost a human gestation period. So in the time it takes to have a baby, you could have somebody in your system.
Yes.
Gathering data.
Yes.
Maybe even manipulating data.
Yes.
And you don't know for 7 months after they've done it. So these guys are very sophisticated at
that. And those are the sophisticated, it was just the sophisticated state actors that were doing this before. You want to know the average time for Asia between awareness, the hack occurring in awareness?
Probably a couple of years.
560 days.
Jeez, that's
almost the last study I saw.
That's like 18 months.
Yeah. And so in the past, the state actors were the ones that were coming in for cyber espionage in general. And trying to grab information so that they could help their corporations, succeed, or their companies succeed, and also to find out information that might be important for state, for their state interests. Increasingly, we've seen from even the ransomware attacks, which generally have tended to be from hackers that want to make money.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, to make their Bitcoin, but also North Korea, I think in the Petya or not Petya ransomware, they supposedly made about $1 billion in hard currency. But North Korea was kind of more on the ransomware attacks as a state, whereas, generally it's hackers doing it. Instead of, kind of the automatic 10 years ago, ransomware was, you see the email that looks of interest and you click on the the executable code at the bottom, that looks like a PDF, and it runs some program that locks down your system and encrypts everything and says, if you want this, you got to pay this. Now the hackers are getting inside the system. And instead of unloading the payload that encrypts everything, they're going through the system laterally to try to find information that would help them make you pay. They'll go to your HR files as a company, because the HR files has information about pay, sometimes health records, dependents,
families,
all this stuff, right? So they go there and get as much information so that they can threaten you and say, oh, if you don't pay up, we're going to contact all your employees. Or we know the CEO makes this much, we're going to tell everybody. Say it's not a listed company, or other things like that. They try to get then into some executives, key emails to try to find out information of what they're saying about other people that might be their vendors, and they're going to embarrass them.
Or they might be working on a massive contract or a merger.
Yes.
And
right?
That's valuable information.
So they'll find out those areas. And then the other key area is they'll go to old servers that are no longer updated by like Microsoft 2010 SQL Server or something that's out of cycle. And so there are weaknesses that are on that, and they'll get into that and then gather data. So once they have this arsenal, then they can approach the company and try to press for payments. So we're seeing a lot more emphasis of these hackers in getting and gathering information that could be of use. A lot of times I think we in the public, and even sometimes legally, we look at, oh, company's been hacked. That's going to be personal information about employees and customers and maybe suppliers. And so we're concerned about what's going to happen with the personal information. We're not spending enough time focusing on what's the business confidential information of value that company has and what is compromised there, because that actually probably more CEOs would invest heavier in cybersecurity if they knew their marketing strategy for the next 5 years has now been leaked out or is available in the dark web to competitors or to even national governments that might be bidding against them, or their countries are bidding against them. So,
wow, a lot to digest there.
Yeah, it's a fascinating, it's a fascinating area. The issue with the data privacy side is over time, we've become, the U.S. has started to get a little bit broader on their creepy line, as some of this stuff has been abused by some of the big corporations, and then different state laws are impacting things differently in the U.S. Illinois has a biometric law which affects everything about collecting that. So, like McDonald's would have a thumbprint scanner, and that was illegal, and a lot of different things. So the U.S. is starting to move a little bit more towards this.
Sorry, let me stop you there. For people who don't know what biometric means, what's biometric? Biometric data. How's it used?
Yeah, biometrics is, everything about facial scan, thumbprint scans, even
retina,
voice scans now. You could be retina scan, anything that identifies you as an individual.
Okay.
Generally, it could even be DNA, but now they're talking about that more in genomics. So genomics is your DNA history. So part of the recent executive order from President Biden says basically we're concerned about certain data that's available to countries of concern. So let's say China, and it's a pretty broad list. Certainly, some of that makes some really great sense, and some of it we just have to see how it's defined. Health records, genomics, and anything dealing with human gene that are coming from America. Then biometrics as well. But they have something called sensitive data, and they've also said data. It's basically sensitive data, but they've broadened how that could be defined as everything from your IP address, which is what you use to connect to the internet, to your MAC address, which is the machine serial number, if you will, for your phone or your computer, to your SIM card. Identification that puts your that connects you to the telecom side, to your national ID, even a four-letter like Social Security, last 4 digits or whatever. And so it goes on to say we're concerned about bulk data, which still has to be defined, being available to China from America that and may have some security concerns.
Sure. And we've seen this in police forensics where a 20-year-old cold case has been solved by DNA evidence that was collected, but they didn't know how to use it. What I've heard now is that apps on the phone or computer browsing history, etc., can be collected en masse. And then later, when we have a better algorithm to crunch the numbers, we can find a way to misuse it or abuse it.
Yeah. And so it's exactly right. And kind of where computing power is so much more powerful in terms of identifying things, and AI has come on to help us identify nuances that we couldn't see as easily before. I mean, you can remember from, 10, 15 years ago in the eDiscovery side of the business, we started, talking about technology assisted review, which is essentially just AI.
Yep.
We would, instead of feeding the machine a bunch of words that we hoped would pop up with what we wanted, like we do with our email now, saying, I know I have this. What's the unique character?
Dinner, episode.
Right. That guy.
Yeah. It was Sam Scott?
Yeah, right. So, we still use those generally to do some easy searches, but the technology assisted review was really AI because it asked the person who knew the case to identify what they were interested in. And once it got a sense of what they're interested in, it created an algorithm and says, I'm going to go through 100,000 or 1,000,000 documents and come up with those that look most interesting and rate them.
Yep.
So this concept of AI just popping on the scene is really wrong.
Yeah.
It's been developing in different areas.
And also what is really cool, John Fredenik of Catalyst?
Yes.
I worked for him for a year, and Jeremy Pickens, the algorithm writer.
Right.
Absolutely brilliant guy.
Yeah, brilliant guy.
He developed algorithms that would not only look for words, but strings of words. And also, like, let's say, for example, I want to, what kind of watch is that? Is that Garmin?
Garmin.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would look for strings of words that say, watch Garmin Scott.
Right.
And then it would look at that in context. And if it just said watch, like, we're going to watch the game tonight, it was, okay, that's not interesting. It's not relevant.
Right.
If Scott, then watch, Scott is watching a movie. Okay, no, it's not interested in that.
Right.
Scott has a Garmin watch. Okay. Find me all those documents.
Right.
And within maybe 3 or 4 words of each other. And then as you would, in eDiscovery, when a document is relevant, you, okay, that's responsive. Click on that.
Right.
It would feed the algorithm that data.
Yeah.
And it would refine the search in real time.
Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely insane. And this is years old. It's
right.
And so the pushback from TAR, Technology Assisted Review, I remember when it first came online, and is it Andrew Seja of
I don't know that.
Relativity?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Sure.
They started using TAR, Technology Assisted Review. So you get 1,000,000 documents, and if you're a discovery attorney, you're thinking ka-ching, right?
Right.
Because I need to go through every single document. And then they added highlighted search.
Right.
Okay, so watch. Let's just use Scott's watch again. So every time a watch is highlighted, it's going to show up on my screen. Okay, I need to pay attention to that paragraph.
Right.
Better. Okay, and then every time Scott is within 3 words of watch, I need to pay particular attention to that.
Right.
Okay. When that came online, all the discovery attorneys started getting upset.
Right.
Because your 1,000,000 document universe is now down to 500,000.
Yep.
And as the technology assisted review gets better, it's now 100,000.
Yes.
So a case which would have taken 2 or 3 years 10 years ago can do it in 4 to 6 weeks.
Right.
And my buddy Dave Sanner was a catalyst, and he went to Epiq.
Yes.
Afterward. Dave would always say that, and this doesn't come from Dave, it comes from like statistics, but 70% of the cost of litigation was discovery.
Right.
And so if you see, okay, XYZ company got sued, they had $1 million in legal fees. Well, 700,000 of that was attorneys looking at documents.
Right.
Looking for the smoking gun, looking for something to help our client, something that we need to prepare for in court just in case this comes up.
Right.
Right. And so it's great for corporations. I don't know the law firm side, but for the people who actually reviewing documents, they didn't like it.
Yeah. I think, and this is kind of a lesson for our approach to AI now, in my mind. Look, at that time, yes, the attorneys were saying we used to have, a bunch of associates billing out at a decent hourly wage just to go through these bankers boxes in the conference room, right?
Yeah.
And then, this is taking away our business. But I also saw the other side where corporations were deciding not to litigate issues that they would have because the cost of analysis, because there was a data explosion, right? It no longer has to be on a paper. It's anything that was ever computer made that lasts, right?
When that came out, I think there was an article in the Wall Street Journal. I was in law school, and this came up on my newsfeed. eDiscovery.
Right.
And I had taken Civ Pro, and fantastic professor. And I'd taken Civ Pro, and I remember Discovery.
Mm.
And I remember, okay, that's where you go through documents, right? And then you exchange documents with opposing counsel, etc. You have to watch out for privileged information. Don't give them that. And then eDiscovery, that means emails.
Right.
That means all the attachments. That means, oh, and well, heck, 10 years ago, they were using machines to take an image of a cell phone.
Right.
And then you put that into a computer, analyze that, and go through it.
Yes.
And then there are these, I wanted to ask about this too, when we get into the risks associated with cybercrime and hacking and stuff. Some companies even use, not companies, but individuals use unapproved apps.
Yes.
So let's say Microsoft Teams is a great example because it's a very good corporate application where you can do video conferences. I can chat. I can say, instead of walking over to your office, I would say, hey, Scott, do you have that brief? Or hey, can you check this? Since you're the partner, I'd be the associate. Like, hey, Scott, can you check this? But every time I log into that, I got to do two-factor authentication. I don't have my phone is over there.
Right.
This is too much work. Let's just use WhatsApp.
Right.
Or let's just use Line.
Right.
Or something else. I forget what they call them. Jonathan Rossi had a great word for that. But they're like unapproved apps.
Yeah.
They're not approved by IT. There's no corporate security on that. There's no two-factor authentication.
Right.
But those conversations also get hoovered in.
Yes.
When you do a discovery.
Or they should.
They should.
Right. So two data points on that. Interesting articles that came out recently. I read that the U.S. I think it was the Federal Reserve or FTC had done had fined. I think it was 16 companies, $84 million in total that were all in the finance industry because, in the finance industry, we've always had these issues about whether there's price setting on the Forex rates or otherwise affecting, the rates at which things are being shown.
There was a big LIBOR case 8-10 years ago, right?
Right. And that was for a while feeding a lot of the eDiscovery business, right?
Made a lot of that. I bought a lot of BMWs for attorneys. That's
LIBOR and Forex and all the rest of that. And so all of these entities were allowing their employees to speak. And I think it might have been through WhatsApp.
Okay.
And so, it was not able then to collect all of those communications. And so they said, by you allowing your employees to use these apps to be able to speak through is a problem. So that was a whole bunch of financial institutions.
Sure. And when you get into a government situation like that, where a government agency like the DOJ or FTC comes into your company and says, okay, you have Slack or you have Teams or you have a sanctioned chat application that you're using.
Yeah.
One thing that can get tricky and really dangerous very quickly is saying the simple act of using an app that is not secure can be evidence of fraud. Right. So that's where it gets really tricky. So
yeah, but at least those ones that are corporate approved, they usually have the ability to watch those lines and be able to then to produce the information on them. It's these ones that are outside.
So if I were a bad actor, I would say, hey,
you are a bad actor.
Okay, I'm a terrible actor. I went in for.
You're a good person, but you're acting.
Let's say if I were a bad character in a company like a bank or something, and I wanted to set prices on Forex. I would say, hey, Scott, we're going to have lunch today at 11:30. Meet you for Subway sandwiches. And then I'd go over to my other app and say, by the way, we're going to bump this up.
Yeah, yes.
Percentage point.
And that's what they're trying to prevent.
And then I would say, well, all this is discoverable.
Right.
Because everything we talked about is we're having lunch. Did you see the news this morning? Here's a Wall Street Journal article. Right. That's all stuff that I don't mind sharing. All the other stuff, let's say, and here's something that always comes up. Not always. A huge percentage of the time is infidelity. And that's not part of the case, so it's not discoverable. But one case I worked on, and we always have to be careful what we talk about, right? But just say in a general way, somebody was getting investigated for misusing his corporate credit card. And he had bought something very expensive for his girlfriend.
Okay.
And something very cheap for his wife.
I see.
On the company credit card.
That's a problem, right?
That's a problem.
Okay.
What made most people angry was not that he misused the corporate credit card,
right,
but the fact that he bought something expensive for his girlfriend and something cheap for his wife.
Right. Okay.
That got him in deep, deep trouble.
It's always interesting what actually trips people up.
Well, and what is so funny is like you said, 209 days you can be in a system with nobody knowing, because if I break into a house, somebody's going to come home and see, oh, the door's busted in, right? Or the window's broken, or there's, the drawers have been open and there's stuff on the floor, right? You can see that.
Right.
If it's in a computer system, it's so hard to tell, right?
Right.
So people think, and I've seen this so many times because I've seen so many inappropriate emails in my career, not from me, but in
You've written them for me.
That's true. Okay. I get paid by the word. No, but I've seen so many, and what I mean by inappropriate is price fixing,
right?
All that stuff,
right?
But also people trading jokes back and forth,
yes,
that should not be on the company computer,
right? But
they're thinking, well, it's just between me and him,
right?
What they don't realize is there's an exchange server archiving every single thing. Also, companies put sniffers on the keyboards, so even if you type something like "F that guy," delete.
Right.
It's still logged.
Right.
So there's really no. It's like the Terminator now. It's like there's nowhere to run. Right. So I always tell people, and I try to do this myself, and I fall short because I'm human. Act as if you're going to run for office someday, and everything you do on that computer is going to be held up in front of your mom, your wife, your kids, and your boss. I'm
not sure it's a great example right now because you look at who's running for office these days. but anyway, back on topic. There's another.
Thank you.
There's another great example about how things have changed with use of apps that aren't approved. So this latest Hong Kong hack is fascinating because it's
I was going to ask about that.
It's a deep fake AI video that tricked a Hong Kong subsidiary person. So what happens is, a lot of times these phishing emails come through saying, looking like it's from the CFO or the president of your company, and it says, "Hey, we've got. I'm about to get on a plane. I'm going to close this huge deal. Ultra secret, hush hush. I need your help. I need you to transfer." It used to be like $100,000. These executive fraud things, and
it's always urgent, and it's always like, don't tell anybody because it hasn't been in the press yet.
You're my trust.
Top secret. I trust you.
Right, and actually, that's one of the key things you should always look for in these scamming emails is that they play on you're the only one that could help them, like the Dear Grandma ones.
Yes,
the kids aren't calling their parents for help; they're calling grandma. Right, and grandma goes, "I can help." Right, so anyway, that should be part of your spidey sense. If it's too good to be true, this person is trusting me to do this quiet thing. That's one part. So anyway, she gets an email that says, "We're going to be doing some major transactions. I need you to start moving some money into this Hong Kong bank." She's a little bit skeptical, but then she gets an email. She gets an invite to participate on a video call, and it was. At least from what I could see from some of the writings, I think it was WhatsApp, but it wasn't probably one of your usual company emails. It
wasn't a company sanctioned.
Company sanctioned video chat service. But anyway, she gets a request to be on it, and she sees the CFO from the UK office in person with his voice saying, "We need to start doing these transfers." And there's 5 or 6 other people from our company that were also deep fakes made that would, kind of wade in at different points after introductions. And then there is one handler on the line that was actually controlling things because these things aren't made just immediately. They need to be kind of programmed to say, you need to make the transfers at the right time in the right voice. And so she bought that and started transferring, I think it was $25 million US dollars, 18 different transfers that she made over the course of the next few days before she called the home office and said, "Hey, is this legitimate?" So again, couple of red flags there again. Why is this kind of it didn't seem to be secret when it came through the video lines.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a usual app used by the company. She could have easily checked, more independently. She could have, instead of going through on the email, it says click this link or click this link.
Click this link.
Click this link. Link this click. Click that link, whatever you're going to do to it.
Open this.
Yeah. And you don't do that because that's going to take you to the hacker's site. Instead, it says, oh, you have to reset your password on something. You go independently to the app and then open it and try to control things through I think of it as two-factor authentication, right? We not only just do our password, usually there's some other way to get into something secure. If there's going to be a large amount of money to be sent, companies should probably have a separate, of authorization to do that, to stop these things from happening.
And this is the beauty of Japanese corporations. Anybody who's dealt with a Japanese corporation knows it takes forever to get anything done.
If you don't have that paper ringi show,
right?
You're out.
They have what's called a ringi show, which is like a list of people who have to put their stamp on something, and it goes from office to office to office. And in the States, they call it a pocket veto. In Japan, it just disappears on somebody's desk, and it just never goes through. So you have to go around and do a lot of politicking if you want to get like a pencil, from supply room. You got to get like
Nemawashi,
right? You got to do all that. I think this is one thing that kind of helps major corporations from getting scammed like that, because to transfer $25 million, you'd have to get all these different signatures or stamps, right?
Yeah.
And also the uniqueness of the Japanese language.
Well, that was the case.
It was, right?
Right.
Is it changing?
And I think there was a couple of things. I'm not sure that Japan wasn't still being hacked as much, but I think there was less financial, awareness and impact, because they weren't necessarily going after grandma and granddad's, Bitcoin account.
That's true, but they have plenty of homegrown scammers who call up and say, "Hey, it's me." There's one. It's called the ore sagi.
Yeah.
Right. Ore means me.
Yes.
It's used for men. It's a masculine pronoun for men. But they call up and say, "Okasan, ore dakedo." Mom, it's me.
Right.
And they're in a hurry, like, "Mom, I crashed the company car. I need $5,000 to fix it.
Yeah.
You got to help me, Mom. I'm going to get fired."
Yep.
And she's thinking, "Oh my gosh, I raised this kid. I sent him to college. We still owe student loans on this kid, and he crashed the company car.
Yeah.
What an idiot! But I got $5,000. He's like, Mom, send it to this company account. And Mom, I got to go. Thanks.
Yep.
You saved my life.
Yep.
And so Mom goes to the ATM and she gets $5,000. It was like, or $500,000 yen or whatever, and transfers it to this bank, and the money's gone.
Right? Yeah. So the other version of that from and that's the old school one. Also this is old school, as they call up and say, "Dear Grandma, I've been in an automobile accident," and like this happened to my mom. She got the call. "Hi, Grandma," and she goes, "Is this Michael?" He says, "Yeah, it's Michael. Sorry, I've been in an automobile accident, and so my teeth are kind of messed up, so I don't speak perfect. But there's a pregnant lady involved, and I'm going to go to jail, and there's an attorney going to call you up, and we need to do some things so I don't go to jail." And the uptick now is they are now going to the social media accounts for the children. They're gathering their voices. They are now calling using your kid's voice and his name or her name, and also knowing the brothers.
Yeah.
And then saying, "Hi, Grandma or Mom, I've been kidnapped. Please help me. I'm so scared," and screaming in your child's voice. And then the kidnapper supposedly gets on and says, "Okay, here's what you're going to do." Okay. And they can hear screaming of the kids in the background, and the kid might have said, "Oh, and I'm with Bobby too," the other kids, and only their own personal nicknames that they knew. So, and it used to be, so I heard this recently, like they did a AI imitation of Joe Rogan a few years back, right? And it took 6 months of analyzing all of his podcasts to get his mannerisms.
2,000 episodes.
Did it forever to get his exact mannerisms, right?
Yeah.
Now I'm told that it can be done with probably 3 to 30 seconds.
Yeah.
They can get your voice down right.
And by the way, this is why I wanted you here today. If you could just turn to the right.
So and then to the left?
Yeah, and then to the left, and then stay there. No, stay right there.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay. And how about up and down?
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. And then now we're going to have
somebody much more intelligent is going to be your podcast.
Now we're going to have a cyber Scott.
A lot more entertaining than what we've been talking about. Yeah. Anyway, so that is the scary part of what's coming in the future as data has moved from, at one point, can we even crunch some numbers and figure out and put it on somebody's desk, to how it can help with our businesses, to where it could cause serious concerns about how do we go forward. Can we believe that what we hear one of the presidential candidates say is what they actually said?
Can you believe an actual video call?
Right.
If a bank can get scammed by a video call using deepfake and a voice changer.
Yes. Now, some of that is, so for your logging into your accounts, using the biometrics, facial scanner on your phone. That's oftentimes tied to an app that has a specific reading that it's going to take off your algorithm to allow you in.
Okay.
There may be a couple of ways that if you're incredibly, really, really good, you might be able to spoof something like that or be able to. But for the most part, we're still at, I think, it looks right to us visually and now it sounds right. But, I don't think they can put up a scan of your face that they took off of Facebook and be able to get, because it's all three-dimensional.
That's because you have to, when you do two-factor, or when you do the facial
scans,
you have to you don't move the phone, you look around, right?
Yeah, that's why you look up and down. Because you move around. Yeah, because it's doing the triangulations and the differences between all of
so if I were to show it a 2D picture, it would be like, no, it's not him.
It's not going to get your three-dimensional biometrics that would open your bank account that you put into that. So and then where we're going next, that's really the concern, is that this concept of quantum computing moves processing speed up so significantly higher that all of our current encryption, passwords and everything else, which used to go from 3 digits and now 17 plus upper lowercase special characters and everything else. So you can what was my password again? At any rate, it'll be able to crack those very, very quickly. How close we are, there's some different questions. If we're 5 years away, if somebody might get there earlier, there's, but that's the concern, is that we have to kind of create a whole new way that we're going to secure items going forward.
This just gets scarier and scarier.
It is, and it's exciting, right?
Yeah.
So we had that question of, okay, so what happened between, with TAR, technology assisted review, and was it going to destroy the industry, and were lawyers going to lose all their work? We had originally in the buggy whip manufacturers back in the auto days. Oh, the buggy whip manufacturers are going to go out of business once all these cars come on. Yes, they did, but they, transitioned, or we should be thinking about transition. The lawyers ended up spending less time, associate time wasted in a room looking at documents, and spend more time doing some actual interesting legal work.
Gets a summer job at Squire Patton Boggs and says, I want to sit in front of a computer clicking yes, no for 10 hours a day.
Right. Yeah.
It's not very rewarding work.
Right. It's a slog. And so I look at that and say, okay, the improvement to our life can be something that could be wonderful. I mean, wouldn't it be great if, you could only work 3 days a week, but be more productive because, AI is doing a portion of your job and you're coming and using your expertise to correct, fix, and ensure that everything's work, and then kind of inspiration to do different creative things that maybe the AI has not come up with. And so you can now work 3 days a week. And now we solve energy issues with battery powers and other things. And then once we got energy solved, food becomes much more easier. And all of a sudden we're living in a golden age, right?
Yeah.
The
Jetsons or Star Trek. Let's go back to Star Trek.
Probably the Flintstones, but anyway, one of those old guys. The flip side is people are afraid they're going to live in a state-run society that is going to govern everything you say and do, and is going to correct you, if you ever stumble and
we're going to have social credit scores, so you can't get on an airplane if you said something wrong, or
and that's the other side of it, right? So where do we fit?
You go to buy a steak and they say, "Oh, sorry, Mr. Warren, you've had your quota for the month."
That's right. We've been watching your weight, and it's time to stop.
You remember The Island with Ewan McGregor?
I don't remember that.
The Island was a great movie. I believe Ewan McGregor was the main character, and these people were. The story goes that the world was destroyed in some kind of nuclear disaster, Holocaust, whatever, and only a few hundred survivors were left on this island. Right. And they're in a bubble. What they're being kept for was a little more nefarious. They were being kept for organ transplants.
Oh, nice.
So they were basically clones, DNA clones.
Right.
And every time Tracy in real life says, "Oh man, I've eaten too much junk food, or I've drank too much, I destroyed my liver," they go get the clone and take his liver and put it in me.
So okay.
What they did is they had this thing in the urinal where you pee on it.
Yep.
And it would instantly tell you, okay, today you need 20 more carbs.
Right.
You need 10 more grams of protein. You need to drink another glass of water.
Right.
And it would tell you, everything about your health that you could get from that urine sample.
Right.
And I think people are freaked out by stuff like that.
Well, we're not far. I mean, there's a lot of different concepts about how that can also help you, understand perhaps an early onset of illnesses.
That'd be a good thing.
Dementia starting to show in different ways. There's some really great health apps now starting to look at and being able to diagnose based on asking questions to people and how their eyes move and work. Is there a line towards dementia, or these apps that check your urine out to find out?
Well, and another thing is too, like, because of the globalization of medicine, or at least let's not say nationalization, that sounds like national healthcare, but with the internet, with telephone calls, with video calls with doctors, somebody in a small town could get on a call with a doctor at a major university, and they can see by talking to him, okay, his speech is slurred, he's got a certain tic, or his posture is slumped or something. Those are the symptoms of this particular illness, or he's had a stroke or something, a minor stroke, where maybe as good as the doctor is in that town, they don't have experience with this particular illness. So I can see that as a good thing.
There's so many good things that can come out of it. But, and then people have this concept of what happens if AI gets to singularity, and it means it is a conscious entity that thinks for itself. And a lot of people almost think it's there now because it can create a story when you say, tell me about, Mickey Mouse, and tell me a story about Mickey Mouse and, Mickey Mantle in one story, and it'll create you this wonderful story.
Well, and it's getting to the point where you can say, my favorite guitar player is Eddie Van Halen. I could say, and this makes great YouTube videos, by the way, for anybody interested, but because I know you're a musician too, but there have been guitar teachers or really good guitar players who say, what if Metallica had done a song by In Excess? Okay, What You Need by Metallica. And then they write it in that style and play it in that style.
Right.
But it's going to be to the point where if it's not there already, say, I want to hear Eddie Van Halen play this song by the Beatles, for example.
Right.
I can put together a band. I can put Jimi Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen, and John Lennon together.
Yes.
And have them sing a song together in harmony and say, okay, John's going to sing this, Eddie's going to sing harmony, Jimmy's going to sing background, he's going to play a guitar solo at this part of the song. You can do that. And so it'll be to the point where I can say, you know what, I want to see Lord of the Rings, but you know what? I want, instead of Aragorn, I want to see Burt Reynolds. I want to see Burt Reynolds in Lord of the Rings.
Right.
And it'll make it for you, a 2-hour, 3-hour movie. It'll make a song for you. Like, let's say I want to hear Eddie Van Halen play, something by ABBA.
Right. So this is one of the really interesting questions on AI, generative AI in particular, in copyright law. Because there are so many different views about what to do that. We've got kind of two major issues in it. What can it ingest to train itself? And then what is it output? What happens with its output? And the ingestion side, most countries are kind of saying, oh, it's okay for it to ingest as long as it's for a non-commercial use, right? Germany has a law that says if it's for commercial use, but all the profits go back into research, then it's fine. Japan took kind of a controversial view back in 2019 that said you can ingest any type of copyright work, whether it's for commercial or non-commercial work use. Some of the theory behind this is that Japan tends to, well, first has a couple of issues. One of them is an older population, and it needs AI to become, to continue to compete at a decent level. And also it needs AI robots to take care of grandma and granddad, right?
Elon, get those robots ready. Come on. We're counting on you, buddy.
Second is that Japan doesn't currently have any big, generative AI providers. So if it's going to kind of spark the industry, it wanted to see that happen. And then just general robot use has always been one of Japan's leadership, but AI is probably in its control of that.
It's been automotive, right? And manufacturing.
In so many different areas, right? And just general robots in Honda's Asimov or whatever,
Well, now Uber Eats has robots in Chiyodaku, which is around Tokyo Station. I got to go make a video of that. I think those are awesome. This happened in the States. Yeah. They had food delivery robots, and they got robbed.
Yeah, I don't doubt it. I remember one of those old robots back 15 years ago, was kind of early generation, was in a square around a train station. And it was having donations for the earthquake or something like that. And it was just a box, a wooden box that the robot was carrying, and you would open the box and put your money in. And I'm thinking, this is not going to happen anywhere but Japan.
Anywhere,
right?
Only in Japan. Yeah. Well, how I've talked about this before, how Japan gets people to accept robots in their life. So if it were the States, it would have a sign on it that say, damaging this robot is against federal law. And they would have the law on there. In Japan, they have a little robot that comes around and says, cute. Hello, how are you?
Right.
And it's got a cute face on it,
right?
But it's also got a camera watching you, right?
Yes.
It's the same thing.
Right.
Just Japan, they make it cute.
Right. Yep. So it's been friendly for a lot of reasons for robots and AI and that concept. So it has still currently probably one of the most friendly AI ingestion rules. And the problem was, though, that even like the health minister, the arts minister had said at one point, even ingestion of pirated materials, if it's a pirate site that has, movies that haven't been approved and stuff like that, ingestion's fine. There was a lot of kickback or pushback from the manga industry.
I'm sure.
Japanese movies, also Motion Picture Association and others were pushing back hard on this topic. So they recently had a study group which released a long paper saying, and digesting how you can use it when it's legal, talking about if the ingestion is for enjoyment, and I'm not sure how they're going to determine that. And they basically said a lot of this has to be decided on a case-by-case basis. Any rate,
it's Japan, case by case,
which is curious because Japan's a civil law country, doesn't really run on a jurisdictional like the U.S. common law where the judge and jury are going to decide these cases and that becomes case law. There is that concept, but it's not the general way things. But anyway, that's the way the rules state. So that ingestion issue is an interesting question. And then the idea is, okay, what comes out of it? What happens if something that comes out of it? There's several cases involving this. Germany has one from a photographer who is contesting whether or not that commercial use that goes back for funds, for research is fair. In the United States, there's stuff with Getty Images and Getty Museum that had pictures created by an AI that actually has the Getty Museum, logo or Getty Images logo still kind of cut funny on it.
AI images still has a problem with letters. That's why a lot of the really cool cyberpunk stuff you see is in Japan.
Okay, interesting.
Because the Western audience normally cannot read Japanese.
Right.
So you'll see like a cyberpunk model walking down a street in Tokyo, and it'll have like neon signs behind her. But if you read Japanese, all the signs are garbled.
That's funny.
And they're complete nonsense and not even real characters. But
I think the funnier ones are the Westerners that get the tattoos and that Japanese character, and it actually says dog or something completely crazy you would never put on your, but it looks cool, right? So
or the triangle tattoo. Did you see, is it Jake Paul? He's going to fight Mike Tyson.
I did see that.
He got the tribal tattoo.
Did he?
Just like Mike Tyson. I thought it was a joke.
Oh, I did.
Right?
I must too. I hadn't heard that. That's amazing.
Oh my gosh. I wonder. So
that's funny.
Going out of computers for a second there.
Yeah.
I think that's a lose-lose situation for him because if he gets his butt kicked by a 58-year-old man,
it's Mike Tyson.
He's a schmuck.
He's Mike Tyson.
But if he, for some reason, because I think he's a legitimate boxer.
He supposedly has a real strong punch.
Well,
so
look at the guy. He's jacked.
Yeah.
And
he's much better. Even the boxers I know say he's much better than they thought he was going to be. He's been working on it.
Yeah. Well, he's got money. He can get a personal trainer, a coach. If he knocks out Mike Tyson, he's a jerk. Because Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson, you know?
You know, the way those things have gone is hardly anybody ever gets knocked out. They usually go the distance.
It's an exhibition.
Is Mike going to actually want to go the distance, or is he actually just?
It's an exhibition. But if you see Mike training, he is frightening.
Oh, he is. He's amazing.
He's frightening.
Yeah.
He can still do that peekaboo, the shuffle. It's like scary. Okay, let's
I don't think he calls it the peekaboo, though.
I think they do.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That sounds so wrong. Peekaboo, you know,
it's where he dips down.
Okay,
pops up in the face, right? Yeah. Well, and I only know this because I watched a couple videos about it, and then it says, Mike Tyson breaks down his peekaboo style.
Right. Okay.
He learned from D'Amato. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So on the AI output side, then the question becomes who's responsible for when it does infringe somebody's rights, and I think Japan's kind of weighing in with if the intention wasn't to create something copyrightable, and it also tells people that are, if its intention was not to create something that would infringe somebody's copyright, and it's telling people like motion picture and other content creators they should take steps to try to keep these screen scrapers from going through and being able to get content.
Sure.
Then the output is less likely to be what they're saying is contributory infringing, right? The person that's the real infringer is the guy that says, I want to see, Lord of the Rings, but with, Burt Reynolds, because he's asking specifically for copyrighted material to be mashed up. So that's the direct infringer. But can there be contributory infringement?
Yeah.
That all has to be kind of weighed out. So that's kind of
and then somebody's likeness. So there's already been actors that have had their have had their likeness ingested. And they do this thing like they did it with all these different movies like Avatar. They put the dots on. Electronic Arts did this for games, with FIFA games and stuff. They put the dots on and then they ingest that person, their gestures, their mannerisms, obviously their voice. If you're a major star like that, you can say, okay, company, give me $10 million and you can have my license in perpetuity. So if an actor has made this deal that their likeness is owned by Sony or Columbia Records or something, their likeness is owned by this company, and any derivative work from that likeness will generate royalties to the owner of the likeness. And then I come out and say, well, I'm going to, make my own version of this person, then I would be probably violating copyright law, right?
It could be under copyright, but really it's name, image, and likeness type things. And different states in the U.S. look at it differently. There's a right of publicity that exists in California, which a lot of the other states didn't have.
Imagine that,
right?
Hollywood.
And so anybody who signs their rights in perpetuity has probably got a bad counsel.
Yes.
But this is so what I just read this article. There was a sports guy from a particular area, football player, who gave his did some vocals. And also, I think they then turned it into AI, and he's the person who answers the phone for a chicken company. Saying, hi, I'm so-and-so from the New York Jets or whatever, and would you like to have, what would you like to have? And it does all the response now for him.
Oh, my gosh.
And so, the
Your
stuff...
Your total is 28.45.
That's right. Touchdown. There's just some really interesting stuff going on with where all that's
well, and it used to be like we talked about Joe Rogan before. It's happened with Jordan Peterson too, because he has hundreds of hours of lectures online. And that sample data is so much that you can get him saying probably every word in the English language.
Yes.
And then
or the Canadian language.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, you got to clean your room. So, then you can do a deep fake based on that. And then, but like you said, 30 seconds now is probably enough. There is, I believe there's a sentence that they have people read when they set up voice authentication on a device.
Okay.
And it covers like as many of the possible sounds in the English language.
Interesting.
And all the vowels. And
it's not supercalifragilistic. No.
Expialidocious? Probably not. But I think they use that to set up, to get a voice sample and say, okay, now Tracy is authenticated with this device and we can use his voice. What freaks people out, so speaking of voice authentication, people who have been arrested and prosecuted based on their home device data, let's say Alexis or Google Home, where they say, hey, I don't like that guy. Next time I see him, I'm going to kill him. I got my 45 with me. I got my 9mm with me.
Wow.
If I ever see that guy again, he's dead. A couple of days later, he ends up dead.
Right. And that's on Alexis.
It's on whatever device. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Another one is the big joke was that Jeff Bezos was talking to Alexa and he said, I'm thinking about buying Whole Foods. He says, buying Whole Foods. But another one is, we've all seen this happen. And a lot of times I think it's coincidence, unless I've clicked on an ad, right? So let's say I'm looking for a vacation in Hokkaido and I look, okay, wow, there's a great hotel in Sapporo. And there's a monument I want to visit in Hakodate.
Right.
Okay, that's cool. And then I close the browser, and the next day I come in and I log in and check my email, and it says, flights to Hokkaido.
Right.
And I know how that happens, right?
Yes. Right.
But people have said that this has happened before, where they're talking about like, hey, Scott, wouldn't it be cool to go to Hokkaido in the summer? Because it's cooler up there in the summer, right?
Right.
And the next day you open your phone, or later that day you open your phone and you go through and it's suggesting flights to Hokkaido, right? I think that freaks people out.
It does.
Yeah. A lot of times it's coincidence to me because, but I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen in my own life. But then you got to think the opposite way. How many things have I talked about that I've never seen an ad for?
Yeah.
Right? I could be talking about legal pads.
Yeah.
I can guarantee I'm going to open up my phone. It's not going to suggest legal pads.
Yeah.
It's just not going to.
And that could be also the advertisers for legal pads aren't really looking for that. But
that's true.
It's funny to me because people say, oh, yeah, my home is my, sanctuary and everything else. But especially in the U.S., I think it's less so here. But people that have Alexa or, that constantly have Siri on and unless, you're supposed to say, hey, Siri, and then it's supposed to turn on. Oh, it turned on when I did that. Oops. Yeah. So, but those people have these on all the time.
Everybody at home?
Yeah.
Their phone just, their iPhone just lit up.
But they'll have it on all the time. And anyway, I want to ask you a technology question, but where we're going, because I think this is kind of an interesting one. As AI improves, becomes much more personal, much more ability to, so there's. Are
you asking if I have an AI girlfriend?
Well, it's going there, in fact, because like in China, I was reading an article that said, one of the biggest hits for China right now is women that are on an app where it's an AI boyfriend. And they're talking about how sensitive and aware and ask the right questions and how so much easier to have a relationship with this
your
AI.
Anniversary.
Right. Remembers, that you were concerned about this the other day and asked questions about it.
How sensitive.
Right. And it's, you can almost understand. We could also do this with the law. Sure. When it gets easier to have a judge, an AI judge that is going to make the decision for you, and frankly, you may not trust half the judges out there because we now don't trust people for a zillion reasons, right?
By the way, I think that's where TAR is going. Technology assisted reviews. We take all the evidence, ingest it into a computer, and say, okay, AI judge.
Right. And so those concerns on that becomes, how's the algorithm trained? Is it fair to different minorities? Has it been trained across different whatever? So, but you can see, we could get to a point.
Take it out. It can say, suspect number 123 doesn't have a picture of him, doesn't have his race.
Right.
Is suspected of XYZ crime, here's the evidence.
Yes.
And the AI can look at it and say, oh, he's not guilty. It doesn't matter what color he is.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
So again, that's on that line. Is it good? Is it bad?
Could be a good thing. Yeah.
Right. And I think eventually we may just want to turn more and more of our decisions over to the AI because, the other side, or we both agree we're going to trust the AI more than we're going to trust one of three arbitrators that we've somehow selected.
And it always comes up to, there has to be a TAR agreement too, right? In litigation, you say, okay, we're both going to agree.
Yeah.
And we're both going to agree if it's 97%, 96% accurate, we're okay with that.
Right. Because the human accuracy is much lower than that anyway.
And so if we say, okay, we're both going to submit to the judgment of this AI.
Right.
So if like you and I are in a civil case, about a house from you, the roof fell in,
right.
We're going to give that data to the judge. The judge is going to say, okay, oh yeah, you're negligent because you didn't check the roof.
Right.
Okay. We would, in my perfect world, we would both sign on to that.
Yep.
Say, I agree, just like arbitration or mediator. Right? You would say, I will agree to follow the judgment of the mediator or the suggestion of the mediator or the judgment of the arbitrator, or I agree to submit to the judgment of the all-powerful AI judge.
And so what a lot of countries are doing now, particularly Europe and some others that are looking at AI decision-making, is to ensure, one, that there is some type of proof the algorithm is accurate and is fair across different things, but also that those decisions pass through a human at some point before they get finalized.
I think that's a good thing.
Because that way, and that could leverage that person's, to be able to do a lot more cases. A really experienced judge could say, something doesn't seem right, could even perhaps ping back to the AI judge with these additional thoughts and then get some, or then directly interact. So I think there's some interesting things in there. The thing on the relationship side is that, and I think this is even more true now looking at kids as they grow up, they're a lot more used to online relationships than they are to face-to-face, you and me talking and, pausing to figure out who has a point to say about what and all the, or just, relationships. Well, they're good. They push you.
I met the most amazing woman at a coffee shop. But I've talked to guys who are younger and they say, how did you even think to go up and talk to her?
Right.
Like, well, that's how we did it in my day.
Back in my day, we used to did a stone tablet.
That's right.
And we would say, please date me.
That's right.
By the time we had it done, she was dead.
But, but that's how we always did it. You would go up and say hi, or somebody in class or somebody at work, whatever. You're like, hey, how's it going? What are you doing Friday? I'm going to go see a movie. You want to come?
Right.
I've talked to guys, believe it or not, that have never done that.
Never dated anybody?
Never. No. Well, I think I've talked to guys like that too, but I've talked to guys that have never gone up and hit on a girl.
Right.
Like that's
we can't say hit on a girl anymore. We have to say go up and chat.
Approach.
Chat her up.
Yeah, chat her up. Yeah. That's right.
Or vice versa.
Like a bad connotation.
It does. Yeah.
But they've met. They've had relationships.
Yeah.
But they met on an app.
Yeah, and so I think even as we get farther along that, now you have an AI that you can speak to that understands your mood and everything else. Now we put that on a robot, right? That you get home from work and they can tell the way your eyes have been dilated. You had a really tough day. Yeah. Oh, baby.
Let me get you a drink.
Yeah. Let me get you a drink. Have a sit. I've got this on. I know you like to watch the sports. Let me put that on for you.
And I got the dishes.
And I'm not sure who's going to buy into this first, girls or guys, right? Or, it doesn't have to be girls or guys, but who's going to actually, I guess it has to be, it doesn't have to.
Somebody has to buy into that.
Yeah. I'm not sure who's going to go first, but I think that becomes very alluring to people that want to have what they would say is a perfect relationship, when yet some of the greatest parts of a good relationship are the parts that push you out of your comfort zone.
The messy part.
Yeah. And then, but, I think that could be actually as alluring as having an independent judge AI.
And you know what? It doesn't have to be an AI girlfriend or AI loaded into a robot that does the dishes and laundry and closes the toilet seat for me. It could be, if I have like an AirPod or if I have an Neuralink, it could be telling me like, hey, dude, she's upset. Ask her if she's okay.
Right.
Or it could be, her birthday's coming up. You need to get a gift. And she likes...
You want to go the augmentation.
I want to go to AR.
Yeah.
Augmented reality. I want it to tell me, I want it to be like my dating coach.
Right.
My relationship coach. Like, hey, remember, she doesn't like shrimp.
Right.
She didn't like that restaurant last time you went.
And it wouldn't be in her voice because that would be nagging.
That would be exactly.
It would be one of your trusted friends.
I'd have to make it robotic. She does not like red roses.
Now, then the question becomes, since you're in that realm, do you end up kind of in a virtual reality thing where you're always fit and
but I
healthy?
Think it wouldn't matter because your relationship would be better because it would be in real time ingesting information about her.
Do you think she would think it's better because she knows you're getting coached? She wants to know that you know.
Does she have to?
Right? Does she have to? She's going to know because all of a sudden you're going to go like this.
And then she's going to say like,
oh, yellow flowers?
And she's going to be like, I remember you didn't like that steak restaurant. Should we try another one?
Right. She'll have hacked into your Neuralink and said, I know you're downloading information. At any rate, it's a really interesting time because things are changing so fast. And you're right. One of them is where AI goes and how it becomes more human-like, and does it get to singularity? And then what do we do with rights? The other question is, do we start doing implants, of some sort in our brain? I wasn't thinking elsewhere. That helps us remember things even.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and this I think would be some of the tiger mamas that want their kids to grow up smart and would all of a sudden be able to store all that mathematical information.
ChatGPT like a year ago passed the bar exam.
Right.
And the MCAT. So like, if you could get that implant and blast through the bar exam, it'd be just like the Matrix.
Yeah.
Where he sits there and his eyes go back and forth and he stands up and says, I know Kung Fu.
Right.
Right?
Right.
I'm not sure I want to go that route because I think part of the human endeavor is the struggle of like learning Japanese or learning how to program a computer or learning how to get along with that special person.
Yep.
Or that stranger. Right? I think that's part of what makes it so beautiful to be a human.
Yes. Ideally,
it is messy.
Right.
And it is. And then when you overcome something, I just listened to somebody talking about weightlifting, and he talked about the best day in the gym is your personal best. Not that I lifted more than him, but I lifted more than I did yesterday, right?
I see. Yeah.
I think that growth of like, I got better at noticing when she's upset. I learned because she refined me through this relationship. I got better at asking if she's okay.
You're right.
And I got better at listening rather than automatically suggesting, you should go ask for a raise. And sometimes the best thing is just say, that sounds really hard.
Yeah. Well, and here we are. Looks like we solved all the world's problems.
I think we did. Augmented reality. Don't put anything in an email you wouldn't want your mom to see.
Oh, goodness.
And don't
too late to retract?
And don't click that link. Scott, it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, sir.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Yeah. Pleasure.